How's it going, guys? Today at LSK we're going to be installing a cage kit on a PROXP. This cage also works with the Turbo R. The only difference is that we supply a different A-pillar bung to work for the Turbo R. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first step is going to be removing all the bolts from all of the pillar bungs. That way we can take the factory cage off. In the front here we just have a rubber boot that we're going to pull off. In the back we're actually going to take off the rear plastics just to make it easier for us to install the new cage. So now that we have the A and B pillar bungs with the bolts out, we're going to take off these back plastics just to make it easier for us to get to everything when we go to build it. So we have a T40 Torx bit to take off this bolt holding the plastics on, as well as this one. And there's some clips. You just have to slide a flathead screwdriver in, release the clip, plastic will come off. There's also some plastic clips on the back that we're going to take out as well. After we get all the bolts out, there's plastic clips that we pulled out. There's one that's kind of hidden. When you go to pull this off, you're going to notice there's a little clip that you can get into right here. You just slip a screwdriver in and pop it out. There we go. Down here, it just has some tangs that stick out, and these tangs are holding into the other plastic. So we're just going to slip a flathead screwdriver in underneath it and pop it on out. There should be two of them. There we go. And it looks like we have one more bolt down here in the corner we need to get to. This bolt down here below, if you have the back of the seat in, it's a little bit tough to get to, so just pop the seat out. So as we're taking it apart, there's one more clip behind here. They tend to hide them, so you'll find out as you start pulling the fender off. All right, so now that it's off, we can remove the body panel. So on the passenger side, it's a little bit different because we have the gas cap here. We got everything broken loose. We pulled the clips out and just kind of worked this gas cap out of the pocket and it'll come right off. Taking off the D-pillar bung, we have a 15mm bolts here. It's captioned on the inside, so we just got to hold it from the outside. We have an 18mm socket, an 18mm open-end wrench. And we're just going to take off these bolts. So one of the things to know about UTV is that there's no door structure in between here. The chassis is just on the bottom. So the cage is a huge part of the structure of the car itself. So when you release this, this cage, the car wants to kind of fold in the middle. And you'll notice it very quickly, like now the doors don't line up. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually grab a jack and lift it up in the middle so we can get the car relaxed where it was when they had the cage bolted on. We got the cage completely unbolted, and I really recommend you get a couple of your buddies to grab each corner and as many people as you can to lift the cage off. Sometimes it can get a little bit stuck on there. If you have the luxury of a forklift, that really makes it easy, but we understand not everyone's going to have access to that. Hey, can I use your forklift? Yeah.
What? Really?
Yeah.
I'm kind of working right now. I got stuff to do.
Dude, let's go. Don't forget to remove the rubber boots. You need this for the new cage. All right, so we got our PROXP 4 cage here, also our Turbo R4 cage minus the A-pillar bung change. We're gonna cut with a razor blade all the way along the bottom and then flip it over and pop all the staples around the perimeter and then take the lid off. So make sure you cut this open and take out the checklist so that when it was packaged that we make sure nothing is missing in there. And there's also the drawing in there, which is really important because it tells you where every tube goes and any information you need to know for it. Okay, so what I like to do is pull all the tubes out of the box and lay them out, get familiar with all the pieces, and then on every single tube you're going to notice a laser etched part number that'll coordinate back to the drawing that came with the box. So every tube has a part number, and if it's written normally, it's on the driver's side. If it's written backwards or mirror image, it's on the passenger side. If you have a single tube that goes from the left side to the right side, the etch mark is always going to be on the driver's side. So that helps you identify what tube you have. We laid out all the pieces, got familiar with all the parts, looked at the part numbers, organized them by left hand and right hand side of the car, and then we used our drawing that's included in the box for reference, and we can correlate the numbers on this drawing with the numbers that are etched on the tubes. The A-pillar bung is the one that's different. It has an entrance here for if you want to run wires through your cage. So we're going to go put it on here, and we're going to snug them down, but keep them loose enough where they wiggle a little bit so we have some room to play with. So the B and D pillar are very similar. However, the head of one of them will be a smaller diameter, and that accounts for a bigger wall thickness for the main bar. On this car, it's a little bit different than most UTVs where it has a machine bung. Instead, it has this tube with two sleeves in it. So we're going to go ahead and put this in there and slide the bolts in. On this tube, we have some keyholes so that the C-pillar tubes will actually register into it. First, we're going to put the sleeve. I like to tack one side in before we slip the other tube on. That way you know for sure it didn't slip in deeper and it's right in the middle. So when you put the bars together on the sleeve, there's a tang that's going to keep it separated so it leaves enough room for a weld. This is where the B pillar lands, and also there's a gusset on the backside, as well as the crossbar lands on the same seam. So in order to leave ourselves some tolerance, we just have the sleeve tacked to one tube, but we're going to keep them separated, not tack the other side, so that when we put it on the car, we have a little bit of tolerance for it to twist correctly. So we're going to go and put the driver's side main bar up. And the first thing we start with is put the back D pillar in to the bung, and then on the front, it'll line up right above the bung, and we just pop it right into place. Okay. There we go. We're going to go and put the B pillar in, and we're just going to line it up to the notch. We're not going to tack anything in place. We're going to put them in on both sides, and then when we put the cross tube in, it'll cause everything to be seated and all the clips should be tight. We're going to go ahead and put in our first crossbar. Our etch mark is on the driver's side. All the tubes that go left to right are always going to be on the driver's side. Make sure that it's orientated correctly. We have a key right here. We're going to go ahead and put it into the keyhole. And just so we don't have to tack it, I'm going to grab a ratchet strap and put it around both the main bars to keep this tube in place as we build out the cage. I left this middle crossbar a little bit forward, or not quite in place yet, so that we can get this tube in there. There's keys on the end of this, and we're going to register it to the back, and it also registers into this middle bar. We got the center roof bar in, and we put the B pillars up against the main bar. All we did was lift up on the bottom of the jack. That way that the car, from being slouched, was picked up in the middle and definitely tightened up this fit right here. If we need to lift up a little bit, we can. There's just still a really nice weld gap left over. What we're going to do next is just take a tape measure and make sure the cage is square, and then tack this stuff in place before we move on to the front. So the way we're going to check to see if this is square is I just take two familiar points and measure across diagonally, and make sure that it's the exact same. We're going to put the first C-pillar tube in. There's a key on it, so we're going to put the key in. And then we're going to put the key in at the top and make sure it's all nice tight together and tack this tube in place. We're just going to tack it so that on the other side we can tack our tube in as well and make sure that everything fits nice and symmetrical. Now that the cage is all squared up and these are all tacked in, we're going to go ahead and put in the second pillar right here and get that in. So we're going to put the rear window bars in. You'll notice there's enough clearance here for your factory speakers still to clear. I just finished tacking up the back. Let's go ahead and move up to the front. We're going to go ahead and put the visor bar in. We're going to make sure that it's a little bit forward so that we can get the roof bar in. We have keys on this center roof bar. Just going to line it up in here. And then keep our hand on the visor bar, and at this point we'll put the tie down around it. So same thing as the back. We're going to go ahead and just square this up. Make sure it's even or the tubes are parallel, and then we'll do some diagonal measurements, make sure it's square. The copes are ever so slightly clocked. This plane of this bar should be in plane with the main bar. So if you look across the two main bars, this visor bar should not stick up. It should be perfectly in plane, and that's going to make it so it works with our windshield kit. Our dash bar, we're going to go ahead and put that in. And a mallet will really help get it in. All right, leave just enough room off of the dash so it doesn't touch. This bottom dash bar needs to be 23 7/16 from center to center. It's not super critical. There's a lot of variability in where you put the intrusion bars, but we're going to go ahead and get it matched to what it's originally designed for. So we're putting the intrusion bars in. We got the first one in. I'm going to slip in the other one. And we're going to make sure we're centered, and then measure from side to side, make sure it's square, and then tack it in. These are the last portions of the assembly. We're going to put the gusset tubes on. 2 of them go up front, and then 2 of them go on the B pillar. So let's get it done. The last step is going to be to put the fender mount on. We have a key on here, and we have a hole in the tube. So we're going to slip that in and then tack it in place. And now that we have the cage all tacked up, we're going to weld as much as we can on the car, and then once we're done with that, we're going to pull it off and finish welding it on the ground. If you guys bought the roof as an optional add-on, we're going to show you quickly how to get it on the car. All the holes are already in it. We give you the tabs, the bolts. We're going to put it on top of the car, line it up, use spring clamps to get it where we want it, and then tack all the tabs on. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so we put the first tab in. There's a little bit of slot in the roof so that it compensates for if things are a little bit off on the cage. We put the tab on along with a bolt, and we have a non-locking nut laying around just to make it easier so we didn't have to tighten it down with a wrench. And at this point, we're just going to tack them in and walk all the way around the roof and make sure it's all nice and smooth. This concludes the install. Make sure to like and subscribe. Visit us at lsksuspension.com. If you have any comments, please leave them below. We'll see you guys next time.